The point of today's meeting is to receive a couple of key updates. The ongoing matters of health in the community. We feel it's good to have a standing item on the climate. And the main thrust of today's meeting is to build an issues list so that we, the forum, can focus our views and needs upwards, as it were. I'll go into that into more detail later. First of all, I might as well start off with the climate update. We're having a workshop on Thursday on setting up the steering group. I won't go into more detail now because how we progress will depend on the outcome of that workshop. But suffice to say, it is progressing. We felt, due to my COVID, which caused a few delays, having come down with COVID, it took longer to get back to normal than expected. It then got near Christmas. Well, everyone's tied up with Christmas. Now it's New Year. We can focus and go, and we won't be interrupted. Dave will be giving an update on transport. And Denise Perrin will be giving an update on village agents, on the state of play, how we're progressing. Is Denise with us?
She is, John.
Okay. Oh, that they are. Sorry. I can't get my head around Zoom the way you can only see a few at a time. So, Denise, if I can hand over to you to give an update on the village agent scheme, that would be fantastic.
Okie dokie. I will share my screen. I should be able to share my screen. I've had technical problems. Okay, can you see anything on my screen?
No, can see you.
Would you like me to share the slides, Denise? I've got them.
I think you're going to have to. Yeah, I've had to do a major update on system, and I think it's just denying me the chance. So go ahead. Okay, so you guys, oh goodness knows, it was probably November, feels like forever ago, but anyway, so lovely to quickly catch up with you today. So at that time I was saying, look, it's all on the horizon, blah blah blah, and we've been doing well. So this is a quick update. Next slide please, Mark. I'd like to introduce you to the first two people on the team who are both on the call tonight. Katie Lunn is going to be covering Bath Eastern, Bathampton and Bathford. We're interviewing for the rest of the Orange area next week. Chantal Young is, she's going to give us a little bit of time before she properly starts in May. So we're doing odds and ends of meetings, and she's covering the blue areas, so Hinton, Charterhouse, Freshford, South Stoke, Monkton, Combe, Claverton, and also helping a bit with Combe Down. And I'm also interviewing someone else to take over primarily Combe Down next week. And this afternoon we interviewed and have offered to someone subject to references, etc., who will be doing the majority of the pink area emanating Peasdown, Wellow, Combe Down, Dunkerton, English Combe, Newton, St Lew and Shoshcombe. So having sort of started very quietly in the recruitment game, because there's a lot of jobs out there and a lot of, it's been difficult to find people, but we've got the most amazing team pulling together, and really amazing backgrounds. So again, we can talk more about that at some later stage, and you will start meeting them slowly. Next slide, please, Mark. Yes, so that gives you the update. You can have all these slides as a PDF or whatever. Next slide, Mark. So we're making good progress, and I thanks hugely to Katie Lunn, who's just embraced this from day one. This is the 4th week on the job. She's a local person. She's got some fantastic contacts, but also she's already been working with the Bath Eastern Rural Leadership Group, who had another meeting last night. Some excellent work coming out of that, and very well supported by councillors who are on this call tonight. What we're finding interesting in our other areas across rural Bains, it tends to be predominantly older people. What we're finding very quickly, that families in Bath Eastern need some support, and there are a lot of isolated younger families who are not able to get around so much, but also with more needs around children. So that's an interesting development for us. And the older people's lunch club and the volunteer drivers, that's all gone by the wayside because of COVID. So we're working with local people to get that off and running. And as always, in anywhere we go, transport is a huge issue. Next slide, please. Coombe Down, again, we're sort of waiting until we've properly got staff on board, but already I've started taking clients from the Coombe Down area. One gentleman has been a fountain of information, given that he's lived in the area since well, he's in his 80s now, so he's certainly been there for 70 of those 80 years. There used to be a men's breakfast club at one of the local churches where 30 or 40 of them used to meet regularly. That's gone by the wayside. We're talking to him and Curo up at Mulberry Park about starting something tentatively. We don't know where that will go, but also reminiscence sessions for the older people's groups up there. And a Route 60 plus event. Next slide, Mark, and I'll explain what that means. Now, before COVID started, I'd already secured some money from the police trust. I can't remember, it was the Road Safety Fund to do with the police, Avers and Somerset Police. And we had previously done these events. Now, if any of you have ever been caught for speeding and done naughty school, and you hate going and hate admitting that you go to these naughty school to reduce your points on your license, sometimes you come away, and I've done one years ago, you come away thinking, my goodness, I have learned so much today. If I only knew all of that, I wouldn't have been speeding so much, because I would have, learned a lot along the way. Anyway, if you passed your test a long time ago, then there's always a lot to learn. But more importantly, in the last almost 3 years, a lot of older people have put their cars in the garage, or just haven't been using them, been needing to use them, but now they're needing to sort of decide, do I keep my car or not? Can I live without it? But if I haven't got decent public transport or community transport, what are my alternatives? So that obviously leads to questions about community transport or flexible transport or whatever. But in the meantime, we want our older people to be able to return to driving safely. And these sessions, there's an hour seminar delivered by these amazing guys. It's always a great laugh. The picture on the right of the screen, yes, that is a driving simulator, and yes, that is a lady being checked how her driving is, reaction speeds and all of that. They can put someone on that for a just quick 5 minutes test, and that's proving to be very successful. So we're going to do one of these events up in, well, I've got 3 events to place. Next slide, please. The good thing about all of our events is that we invite other partners to join the party. So it starts with coming through the door into a decent hall size. There will always be a hot drink and a welcome, and the room is then covered with tables. And the last 2 events we did, we had 15 different organisations there being represented. So these are just a few of the ones that come along: Age UK, We Care and Repair, Stroke Association, Serona Telecare, and the bottom right is some guys from one of the primary care networks. But we get a lot, and we also invite a lot of local organisations relevant to each of the areas. So people can wander in, meet people, have a chit chat, and then they sit down and they have their seminar, which is always fantastic. Next slide, please. So the event dates. Okay, so I need your help with the first one. The main thing I need to do is always secure the services of our guest speakers, and these are the dates that we've got in the diary. So the 29th of March, I was thinking I would do that down in Freshford, but the hall is booked. I need to find a venue for that, or I have to hand that date back and find another one, but it would have to be in later in the year. I'm waiting for Ash up at Mulberry Park to confirm Coombe Down, but we think that's a goer. That's the 27th of April, and that will be an afternoon, early afternoon event. So that's up in the Two Tunnels rooms, and we've secured the Hive Centre at Peasdown on Friday the 24th of June. So that's good progress. Final slide, please. And that's me. That's my contact details. If anyone's got any good ideas for where we can hold our venue, that spare event, I need a decent size hall with decent parking, and the rest of it we can discuss. But that is me for now, Mark. Thank you. And I'm happy to take questions if anyone's got any.
Hi, any questions for Denise?
Matt's got his hand up. John? Matt McCabe?
Matt?
Thanks, John. Just on the map you showed, Denise, it looked like Camerton, Preston and Marksbury weren't included, but they're all three are in Bathavon South.
Yeah.
Is there a day when they might become included?
They will be. In fact, actually, they're currently covered by one of our other village agents. We just haven't ended up getting much activity from there. So that push-pull thing where we've got somebody covering areas very close to there. So if we push it too much, we'll be easily overwhelmed. I've been doing this for the last 12 years. We've either got just too few or too many of everything. But we've never turned anyone down that's ever come to our services from those areas. So we have been sort of soft covering them, but not shouting about it. I need to redraw that map, which is just a guide, basically. But yes, they are all included.
Any other questions? I'm afraid I can't see hands which are raised, Mark.
No one else has got their hand up at the moment, and there's nothing appearing in the chat at the moment. So
it's Neil, but it's Neil Butters.
Neil.
Sorry, I couldn't get in to start with. Could you kindly just show the map again if you've got it handy there?
Sure, just give me a moment, Neil. I'll need to find that again.
There we are.
So that's just a guide.
Well done, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, so it does include Camerton and Preston. We just haven't included it on this particular version.
Yes, I see what you mean. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
To Coombe Down.
Yeah, so half of the orange bit, the top bit, is being divided by two people, but actually that person might take on the next bit. Basically, it's all flexible, and we just have to go wherever we get the calls from, but also where because we have some areas we've tried to include them always, and we've just never had any take up. The door is always open, so there are some areas that just don't respond, which is fine because maybe they're already getting fantastic cover from elsewhere. But Yeah.
How is it that you cover Coombe Down? That hasn't been a village for 50 years or something.
No, not exactly. Having said that, Neil, I was filming out there years ago with Patricia and Griffin, and I that was with my other hat on, and I thought to myself, my goodness, these guys need a village agent. So it doesn't. We could call it a community agent, but it just happens how the money has rolled out, and it's using some Section 106 money from the massive.
Oh, that's a good idea from
Fox Hill.
Good. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona.
I'm new to this, so I don't actually know what WERN stands for, or indeed what a village agent is. But I'm interested to hear about Section 106 money. So if you could either tell me afterwards, send me an email, a link, or whatever. I don't want to take up people's time, but it sounds very interesting, but I want to know more.
Fiona, we can certainly, I think Mark may even have the presentation from last autumn, which contains a lot of that information. Just very briefly, if people don't know, WERN is the West of England Rural Network, and it's a charity, and we cover a lot of rural issues, supporting communities, governance, village halls. In the pandemic, we were doing a lot around resilience during pandemic and helping local groups form themselves into emergency response. We help support rural transport, and whenever we can, we were helping with a rather large amount of European money to revitalise a number of projects that were village shops. We do a lot of community shops. Anyway, so the best thing to look at is our website, which is wern.org.uk, and that's got a lot of it on there. We've also got a community oil buying scheme. So basically anything that the rural areas feel that they're being left behind or being ignored. We've been shouting about rural matters for as long as I've been involved in this, which is 12 years now. Slowly we've managed to get more services out into rural areas just by saying, hey guys, I know you can tick all your boxes by staying cozily in the urban areas, but actually these rural people matter. So that's the main thing. And one of the responses 12 years ago was the council giving us a very small amount of money to try out the idea of village agents. It's continued in much the same form, but has grown in size and complexity, in as much that people used to just need things like, can you find me someone to mend my dripping tap, or can you help me find out about a particular benefit or something like that. Now we have very complicated multi-agency cases that we get involved in, because people's lives are much more complicated, and we do find that the main thing is to have a listening open ear wherever we are, whether that's attending group activities or just being known within communities, and that's what we do. And then but we also work very, very closely with the community wellbeing hub up at Peasdown, and we've acted as their sort of rural outreach for the last 3 years. So and that's worked very, very effectively as well. And we are facilitators. We meet people, conversation, and then we pass them on to whichever specialist organisation would best support them. So it's a lot of facilitation. Neil. Oh, sorry, can't hear you, my love. Ooh.
Neil, is your hand up again, or is it hacked?
No, he's got something to say, I think.
You're on mute.
Yes, sorry. Where does the money come from for supporting WERN?
It comes from all sorts of places, including the core service comes from ACRE, and where else? We're divided up into lots of different little projects, and the village agent project, which I'm mostly concerned with, is the core service is funded by the combination of the CCG and Council's community health budget, and we sit within the wellness service, the wellbeing service, and we've been doing that arrangement for the last 4 years. But prior to that, we've limped along from one pot to the next, just grabbing any money that will help keep us going. So we've started 12 years ago with 3 village agents in 10 parishes. And now, just before Christmas, we were up to 25 or 6 parishes with 4 people. And now we're expanding across the rest of the rural areas of Baines.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Denise. That's fantastic. I'll leave with a call if anyone knows of their village hall or a facility in their parish that could be made available to Denise on the 29th of March. That'd be really helpful. So I'll put that out there. If people could please check and get back to Denise. If you haven't got her access details, contact details, feel free to go through myself or Mark Hayward. Okay, thank you, Denise.
I appreciate it. I do have to leave you, unfortunately, because my eyes are dead and my brain went to jelly 3 hours ago. So thank you very much.
Fully understood, Denise.
So I haven't stopped since 8 o'clock this morning. So I love you and leave you.
Enjoy a nice glass of something.
I will.
Thank you. Moving on to transport. David Orme, if you could give a short update, up to 10 minutes, then we'll take Q&As for 10 minutes before you move on to the issues section.
Yeah, no problem. It will be very brief, John. I've purposely avoided producing any slides for this evening because I felt slides would imply a certain degree of clarity and certainty that I don't think exists at the moment. Let me tell you where I think we are, and then if Matt or Neil want to add extra authoritative comment, I will of course defer to them. Let's start at the national level, where the government issued its Bus Back Better strategy not so very long ago, last autumn. If you haven't had a look at it, please do. It reads very well. The funding for that strategy, though, to actually make it happen is still unclear. And as far as I understand it, the government intends to make some sort of announcement about that this month. WECA, the next level down, is waiting for that announcement. Whilst they've been waiting, they've done a really good job producing their bus service improvement plan in response to the government strategy. That also reads very well. If you haven't read it, have a look at it, it's worth a look. Along with the bus service improvement plan, WECA had every intention, as required by government, to produce what's called an enhanced partnership. This is a new structure to enable collective and collegiate development of local regional bus services involving all stakeholders in some way. So we were all very keen to learn more about this enhanced partnership because that is going to be very important to us all, understanding how these wonderful strategy documents are actually going to translate into reality. At the moment, we're all on tenterhooks. The government has indicated that the funding for its strategy that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, originally anticipated to be £3 billion, has been reduced. I don't know the reason for that. It's probably political machinations and sleight of hand, as is usually the way. But anyway, everybody is now looking for some share of 1.4 billion. That's about half the amount of money available to make their strategy happen. And as we in the Southwest, I guess, particularly in Bristol and Bath, are not at the front of the queue for levelling up, then we might anticipate that the bulk of that money will go to more politically sensitive areas. But that's just my call. I've got no indication of that. That's just what the old antennae are sensing. So WECA has done what it needs to do, and it's waiting on tenterhooks now to tell us what it's going to do over the next couple of months. The formation of the enhanced partnership has been postponed indefinitely. That's not good, because that's the way we were going to find out what was going to happen. Meanwhile, while all that's been going on, locally now at the Baines level, the Bath Transport Delivery Action Plan, which was produced a good while back, read very well, has been updated and superseded by a wider, more adventurous and refocused, I think, vision, now called Journey to Net Zero. A thinks piece, let me use that word, looking out to 2030 and putting together in one document how Baines intends to reduce the impact of transport on the city of Bath, making things more sustainable, greener, and bringing flesh onto the bones of the bus strategy, the bus service improvement plan, and all the other things that are going on. So it's a big and ambitious statement that's been produced locally that is dealing with urban and rural transport issues. The detail of that is variable because the journey to net zero looks at short-term stuff that's sort of very likely to happen, medium-term stuff that's probably going to happen, and long-term stuff that's could happen. So it, as I say, it's a wide-ranging and ambitious statement. If you haven't had a look at it, please do. There was a public consultation on it, which you may have participated in, but you may have missed because it finished on the 7th of February. But there may be another bite at the cherry, I guess. What else is going on? Oh, WECA has launched 2 important studies as part of its work that hopefully will feed into the bus improvement plan and inform, I guess, Baines' journey to net zero. They are looking specifically at the A37 arterial route over to Bristol and the A367 arterial route into Bath. And they're looking at how those 2 routes could be made more effective and more efficient, and how rural areas in some way at some time will be able to connect better to those arterial routes. So those studies are also very important to us. I see Mark has just flashed up the link to Journey to Net Zero. Good. Please do have a look at it. It's a very thought-provoking read. Let me use those words. I think that's where we are. There's an awful lot likely to happen over the next couple of months, and there are an awful lot of people, political people, very, very worried about what's going to happen at the end of April when the COVID transport support grant that the government had put in place to keep everybody going during the hiatus is due to run out, because they haven't made clear yet how the bus companies are going to be helped, advised, encouraged, required to maintain urban and rural services. So there's a lot to play for, a lot of important stuff to play for that is explained at the highest level in some very convincing documents, but at the moment they've got no money, no structure, no visibility, no timeline, no set outcomes. It's all a bit worrying. It'll probably all come out in the wash, but it's very uncomfortable at the moment. I think I'll shut up there because Matt or Neil may wish to say something extra, and people may wish to respond to some of the chaotic things I've talked about.
Thank you very much, Dave. Before I ask for any questions, point which Catherine has raised, which was a question I was going to ask anyway. The consultation, which ended on Feb the 7th, I believe was extended until the 21st of Feb.
For parish councils, you're quite.
For parish councils, that's right.
It was recognised fairly late in the exercise that requiring parish councils to reply by the 7th of February wouldn't necessarily sync with their monthly calendar. So yes, quite right. For parish councils, the deadline for responses has been extended to the 21st of February.
Which applies to nearly everyone here.
There we go.
Any questions? No?
I was going to say, David is obviously spot on, which is why we usually defer to David. But yeah, there was an announcement in January about a reduction in services. They first circulated a draft. This is because of this funding cliff edge between March and April. We fought to stop some buses from being completely axed. I've forgotten which one it was now.
178 that.
178, that's it, thank you. Yeah, 178, we thought the proposal was to sever Radstock Midsummer Norton's direct route into Bristol, which comes through Marksbury via High Littleton. We fought to stop that, but by sort of putting these big bus axed routes in their draft, that they sort of, the ones we missed were the 6 and 7 coming from the east, so possibly the Bath Avon North might be more aware of that one. Those were shortened. Their routes were shortened, and they would sort of drop off at the Guildhall and head back out again. And so, without any kind of discussion beforehand, it means that it meant that the council was unable to have anything in place. You know, if they'd have talked to us first, I think we might have talked to them about what do we need to do to mitigate the fact that you're dropping passengers, generally elderly and maybe with disabilities, at the Guildhall and expecting them to make their way to the bus station. So there's still some issues just maintaining the current level of service in Baines. But what we did learn today, which I think David mentioned, was that the partnership, the enhanced partnership program, which was due to start in April, the DfT have said yes, that's going to be. There's no need to rush to get that ready, because they have finally recognised that there is a bit of an issue. We had a meeting with the Minister, Baroness Vera, having spoken to First, who said, our passenger numbers are at 75% of pre-pandemic levels, and the government is expecting us to be back at 90 by April, and then they're going to stop our funding, and it's not going to happen. So we have this funding shortfall. And we said that to the Minister, and she just refused to listen, and told us First we're pulling the wool over our eyes and we should stop being so gullible. So we came back slightly concerned, but in fact I think the department has now listened, because it's a national problem. So and considering how important buses are in terms of any transport strategy and reducing car journeys, which is again what the government have instructed us to do, reduce car journeys by 25%. Buses, and especially for rural communities, buses are tremendously important, and the private sector is really struggling. But the whisper today was that the DfT is looking for a package to support bus companies to put that together before that they're requiring the regional authorities to start their enhanced partnership. Sorry, that was a bit longer than I intended.
Yeah, for my part, I agree with everything that Dave and Matt have been saying. It's been a very turbulent journey over the last few years, really, and I'm afraid we haven't made the progress I would like to have seen. In fact, if anything, it's currently going backwards. So I can't see that the government can possibly refuse to put more money into buses, otherwise it makes a complete nonsense of their bus back better strategy. So they just seem to keep plugging away. It's not a money-making operation running buses in Bath. The previous MD, James Freeman, was concern when he left that he'd never been able to make any money out of Bath. In fact, he spent most of his time arguing the toss with his bosses in Aberdeen in First Group. I think we have to be extremely grateful that he kept so many buses on the road, but it's not an easy life being a bus operator.
No, it isn't. Thank you, Neil. Kevin, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I'd like to thank David. He was spot on in everything he explained and is extremely knowledgeable. I'd just like to add that I personally had a number of conversations and correspondence with Baroness Veer over the last few months because, and David alluded to it, and Matt said it as well, there's a bit of a cliff edge approaching in April when it comes to the funding. And it dries up for a lot of bus services. And we on WECA, as I'm on the board, we've kind of put a bit of a sticking plaster on it, but that it won't last long. So the government really needs to step up. And I've been speaking to regional leaders as well, Wiltshire and Toby and Marvin as well from Bristol and South Gloucestershire, to do a joint response. So, and we've teamed together and made a regional bid to Baroness Veer to explain the situation locally. Because unfortunately, after April, the bus company could run out of money with several routes, and it's quite alarming. So we need to be very vigilant that without lobbying central government to give us more funding, there are significant rural bus routes in particular that are at risk, and we've got a short period to fix it. That's sorry to give that alarming viewpoint, but I am pushing the Baroness on that point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Very, very interesting. Does beg the question, the commitment to net zero the government has, but hey, I shouldn't pass comment. Any other questions? No? Thank you very much, Dave. Much appreciated. That's transport completed. Moving on to the Bathavon issues. Just as a reminder, this has come about from trying to understand how we should shape the forum. What are the subject matters we should address within the Bathavon forum? Allied to within ALCA, they ask the question, what are the issues that the parishes have so they can better focus the parish liaison meetings? And through discussions, we basically realized what we need to do is to go back to a situation where which you used to have before lockdown, and when things were run differently well before lockdown, that we build up an issues list so that can help upwards on the chain what the views are from the communities, because my gut feel is that we've got some commonality on issues between the parishes, but we don't know that for sure. So we felt if we build an issues, I call it a list, it's a log, it's a living document, and this would just be a start. What are the key issues within each parish or each community group? Bring those together and see what commonality there is, and then that can help Baines on help Baines with the understanding as to how we feel as parishes. It so happens that it seems that the Baines strategy with the incoming director, I'm trying to remember her name. It's not Sarah.
Sophie Broadfield.
Sophie Broadfield, thank you. Is actually asking for this as well, which is interesting. So we can basically help both ends of the chain. This was intended to be us grouping together to give a bigger voice on key issues so we can focus future Bathavon subjects we address at forums, help ALCA, but as it turns out, we may well be helping Baines as well. Because naturally, they want to address the issues we've got. So what we propose is to spend 5 minutes completing a poll where we want just who you are, what the issue area is, and what a sentence or short paragraph on the issue is, not the full deep detail. Imagine if we had a swim lane diagram and we were just putting post-it notes on the relevant swim lane. Well, we're online, we can't do that. So if we can build up that list of what those post-it notes would be, we'll then take a comfort break for 10 minutes and I'll go through that and try and group them, and then we can have an open discussion where we can pull together the details and build up what the initial issues list is. It's essentially a log. And then we can agree through discussion on next actions on the items. There's going to be a little bit of give and take on this because naturally it depends on what comes through from everybody. Does anyone have any questions on that? No, I've lost my sight of everyone. So I'm sorry, you're going to have to say, yes, I've got a question. No, fine. Okay, so if we can spend 5 minutes just filling out what your top 3 at worst, at most, not at worst, 5 issues are, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I was hoping to make more sense of this during the 10 minutes than I've been able to. I'll be brutally honest here. Trying to translate one question into 3 to 5 answers, but what is clear to me, a common theme here that's arising. One of the things I've also found, I cannot cut and paste from chat. Thank you, Zoom, for putting that security feature in place. So possibly the best way to address this is to go through the responses, because sorry, apologies, Mark. Possibly the best way to address this, because we're going to go through discussion anyway, I'll do my best to summarize as we go. If you go through the order, I've got the responses in front of me. I've got Northstoke. There seems to be no strategic context or vision for rural settlement in Baines. Is there something you'd like to add to that?
Yes, you asked about individual issues, but generally we go along quite well. There aren't many problems. We're a very small community of 70 electors, but we are isolated. The village itself is 3/4 of a mile down a no-through road. There are only 24 dwellings, but we generally the problems arise because there is no clarity on where the future lies. Until the latest update of the local plan, we actually didn't exist, because in planning terms, because we had no housing definition boundary, I can't remember what it is, we were taken as open countryside. We want to know if there is encouragement for us to be a vibrant and dynamic community, which we want. We don't want to just become holiday lets and second homes. We want clarity on the encouragement of businesses here, of the two working farms here, but we're not getting anything. Everything, every issue we have in planning terms, in the ability to get broadband for businesses to use, the point that Doug Creed brings up as well, which is where are we going with solar and wind power, can't be set in the context of what Baines thinks of us and where we are either encouraged or discouraged.
Right.
There's a danger for us of being set in aspect.
I know exactly where you're coming from. I'm wondering how best to place that, because I think we're all hit by that to one extent or another, you more than many. It seems to me it's really to do with the placemaking plan strategy in dealing with the really small communities, because everything comes from that. Does that make sense, Matt?
Can I? Thank you, Chair. Can I just add to that? I mean, we have a situation where, say, in the Greenbelt and the area of outstanding natural beauty, the only development that can take place is within the housing development boundary, which is now changing to the infill boundary. So that really makes development quite hard in smaller villages. Now, a lot of small villages don't want any development. They're quite happy as they are. If they have to have infill, fair enough, but they don't really want it. However, there are other villages, and I think Stephen's just alluded to this. There are other villages who and I think Camerton once mentioned to me that they would quite like some development if it meant a shop. So under the current rules, they can't do it. But once this local plan partial update has completed, which it will do in the next couple of months, I think there will be an opportunity in the next local plan will start the preparatory work for that, and I think in terms of working with some of the other rural councillors, such as Dave Wood, who's got a similar situation over in the Hartrees around that way, where there are some villages that want development. I think we will have an opportunity to maybe address some of these issues again and maybe be more flexible. So yes, let's have some strict rules, but let's be a little bit more flexible with what the villages want, rather than imposing views from the top.
So if I word it, need clarity for strategy for small communities individually within the placemaking plan.
I think so. I think
as a summary. Fine.
When that process starts, I think we should all be on the lookout for the opportunity to raise this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, planning is a recurring subject. So although you may think I'm glossing over it, Stephen, I'm not. Just trying to grab everything else in. Camerton and Dunkerton. You've raised lack of support from enforcement, again planning.
Yeah, at the moment, because enforcement is so under-resourced, if you report anything, you're expected to go and investigate yourself in terms of assessing whether it's permitted development, or we've come across that. So yeah, it's I think that topic about lack of support from enforcement has been since I started in 2009.
Okay, I do remember you speaking about this well before lockdown. Yes. You've also got transport, accessibility of rural bus routes. What do you mean by that?
Even if we had wonderful, frequent, cheap buses to Bath, in somewhere like Camerton, you cannot safely walk to a bus stop on either the B3115 or A367 without taking your life in your hands. There is not enough safe pedestrian walking to bus stops.
Okay,
So you could have, even if you had a wonderful bus service, it's still not accessible unless you have the pedestrian safe and pedestrian access.
I'm with you. So it's the issue is lack of safe access to public transport.
Yeah.
You also raise lack of new housing opportunities. That again is planning.
Yeah, yeah, exactly as Northstoke said. It's a chicken and egg. You can't have the houses without facilities. If you don't get the facilities without the houses, and otherwise, again, you know, even a place like Camerton would just, yeah, it'll end up in Aspic. It'll just, you know, just be, there'll be no young people
Okay.
around.
So are you saying lack of new affordable housing?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, preferably, and when I say affordable, I really mean affordable, not necessarily what the official government definition of affordable is. You know, the sort of housing that you get into new young life into a parish.
Okay, two other points you've raised is transport, i.e. the need for public transport.
Yeah, this is for Dunkerton to Tunley. I mean, it's the same thing. It's basically the future of rural bus services, and in particular the future of the buses that serve the B3115.
Right, and you've also mentioned Curo.
Yeah, while this is not,
that's not really. I've got to ask.
So obviously a Baines Council issue. Well, it might be a common issue in the sense that the lack of support from Curo in activities where they have properties in a parish.
That sounds familiar. Housing, poor support from Curo. Okay. I'll move on. Fiona, Southstoke.
So I think for us, currently the biggest threat is a massive housing development right on our boundaries. That you know, and the landowner wanting to build more and more houses, which would distort the parish, and not only that, cause huge traffic problems both for Coombe and all along the roads from Radstock. Although, you know, people are supposed to cycle in and get the bus. This will cause a huge problem for the whole of the south of the area, and affect not just us, but as I say, the surrounding area. And so traffic and an overabundance of potential housing, and the housing not necessarily being social or affordable, but actually, you know, for bed dwellings for people who come from London, which is not what we really need in the area. And I would also concur with the issue of enforcement, particularly. There's one particular development or one particular building which is a very heritage is a heritage building, yet the enforcement for some of the stuff that's happening there is not happening. Sorry, that wasn't very clear. The enforcement is not happening.
I've got that. It's fundamentally lack of support from enforcement.
Yeah, I don't know. Neil's on the call, so he might agree or might be able to comment.
Well, yes.
I think they're supposed to be up to the strength of 4 enforcement officers now. So we may see some minor improvement, but even so, 4 is well stretched across the whole of Baines, aren't they?
Well, the point of this is to raise issues that we're experiencing.
Yeah. I think that the point I also agree with, which somebody said earlier about infilling, and actually, you know, there may be some areas that could be infilled, but it creates a precedence, which means that other areas that we wouldn't want built on might otherwise be built if we allow smaller developments.
yeah, I understand where you're coming from on that. That's not really an issue that we can raise. I mean, that's for the local community either to have a neighbourhood plan or work within the placemaking plan. Okay, so that's fundamentally housing and planning with impact on the consequences on transport rather than transport being an issue at the moment. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Can I just say, Chair, that those who might be interested on the call, that Matt and I attended a briefing on the South Stoke Plateau development earlier today, and the developers are looking for up to another 300 houses, not 300 in total, which was the figure that the planning officers originally gave us to work with. So that's 471, and there might be a 50 further. So Fiona would be interested in this on the Sulis Manor patch, if that
Okay.
happens. So we're looking at an extra 521, and as Fiona has said, that creates enormous pressure on the local roads. Got down roundabout, the red line roundabout,
Right.
turn left out of the development down to Coomhay and
No, I know that's the detail. The fundamental issue is that we've got a massive housing development that's not serving the local community, that's changing the nature of the area. So it's a planning issue.
certainly is.
Fine, thank you.
And of course, it will swamp the current for South Stoke Parish Council, which is another factor to take into account.
Wello. Olga.
Hello.
Hi. You basically raised transport speeding.
Speeding in itself, we've got one issue which we've been sort of discussing at the meetings for over a year now. It's hard to find solutions to speeding in the village. So we were hoping that Baines can help us with this, but yeah, this is one of the major problems.
Okay.
How do we tackle speeding in the village?
Yep. How to address speeding? How to address transport? That's public transport connectivity. Knowing well, is that the issue?
Well, it's not an issue at the moment. This is more like part of the climate change. Well, obviously we haven't got a bus coming to Vella, but yeah, we're sort of keeping an eye on what the future plans are for transport connectivity.
That's a really good point. No public transport. How to reduce car usage. That's what I'm hearing. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Baines decisions on planning. What do you mean by that?
We had recently a few planning applications being decided by Baines experts, and as usual, our request came for comments for Parish Council. We've submitted the comments, and the Baines decided to sort of do different, they basically ignored our comments, and we didn't have a clarification or any sort of further information on why this decision's been decided that way.
Okay, out of curiosity, because I'm trying to grasp the issue here, I understand that. Did it not go to committee?
No, it didn't go to committee. It's just been the decision's been to allow buildings, even though these buildings are in outstanding natural beauty, and we gave our reasons why they shouldn't go ahead. Despite of that, they've been permitted, and yeah, we've been sort of puzzled about that.
Okay. Because the parish charter says where the planning officer and the PC are not in agreement, it should go to committee. I
Yeah,
know
it
there's a
should be,
process.
but it didn't go in several occasions. So would like to discuss that issue.
Okay. Catherine, you raised your hand there.
Yeah, it's not, you've got to be very careful. It's not going to the committee. It only can, the only right we've got is it goes to the committee chair for them to decide whether it can go to the committee or it can be delegated to the officer. So that's what happens. It doesn't automatically go to committee.
You may be right. I'd have to check
No,
the charter.
no, I'm sorry, I meant that is definitely right. I'm sure Matt will tell me if I'm wrong, but no, you've got the right. It goes before the chair of the committee, and the chair of the committee then assesses it and decides whether it should go to the committee or it goes for the planning officer to be delegated if there's a disagreement between the parish council and the planning officer.
Yeah, so it would also be good to have some sort of basis of the decisions by Baines officer. We don't know why it's been permitted, even though we think it shouldn't be.
Right, so that, sorry, there's insufficient communications going on.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Catherine is quite right, of course, and we discussed this last night in Wellow, and Matt and I are seeking a meeting with a senior planning officer to talk to Wellow about their issues.
Okay, thank you, Neil. Climate change. You've raised, is that just raised as a general issue, Olga?
Just general issue, yeah, we haven't got, it's going well in Wellow at the moment.
Thank you. Kelston, I picked up movement of people, transport, movement of people in the Bath-Bristol corridor, the issue being?
Well, I think the key issue here is potential development of the old railway track to get people, bicycles, walking and things from Bristol to Bath. And if cyclists can't use that path, then we've got to find a way of trying to improve and increase the flow of traffic between Bath and Bristol, which will put considerable pressure on the A4. So I know it's an issue that's being discussed at WECA and that there is going to be some sort of policy coming forward, but I really do, one of the things that I could like to echo from what everybody has said is, with respect, a lot of people don't listen to what the local people, either the objections or the comments that people have. But I think for us, certainly on the western side of Bath, the transport between Bath and Bristol is going to be quite important, particularly bearing in mind the potential development of Bristol Airport, the flow of traffic wanting to come to the World Heritage City. I think that's a big deal for us. My second point was on green corridors. I think the National Trust's proposed development in terms of a green corridor on Bathampton Meadows is to be absolutely lauded from the highest peaks. And I'm just wondering if Baines shouldn't have some similar initiatives in other directions from the World Heritage City. I've been discussing with people today the potential solar array at Marksbury, and you can actually from that application site, you can see Bath quite clearly from there. So, you know, we're miles away from Bath, but how people approach Bath and how they see Bath from a long way away is really hugely important. So I would like the council to be thinking long term about what other developments they might look at to mirror the sort of Bathampton Meadows initiative. And the other one is, very briefly, I would endorse the enforcement issue. We have a case in Kelston which should, the period of time for which enforcement should have been cleared was last September. And I have been emailing people within enforcement, and now people don't even have the courtesy of giving me a reply, which I think is not best practice. So please sort out what's going on in enforcement and let's have some action. Finally, it's some sort of policy on solar and wind energy generation, please. Thank you.
Okay, so that I hear is those last 2 points. Sorry, I'm going to fall over myself. First issue is transport, the movement of people in the Bath-Bristol corridor.
Yep.
That really needs to be addressed. Climate change, building green corridors and tree planting, Bain should consider similar.
Yep.
Climate change, need a policy on renewable energy. And planning, you basically supported previous calls on lack of support from enforcement.
Yep.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you.
Preston, if I spelled you correctly, you've got climate emergency.
Yes.
Yeah. You carry on, Jocelyn.
So we are trying to work hard on various initiatives, and we're planting 900 trees this month. So we're working with Baines to coordinate on that. So it was just a general point that we do want to keep working together with Baines on climate emergency issues. And then there was the planning is very similar in although on a much smaller scale in our fortunately at the moment, but we've had a few villagers sort of disagree about planning issues, and sometimes it's not that clear why things are allowed and other things are not allowed perhaps, but fortunately the issue didn't create too much problem, but by dealing with it with a bit of tact and talking to people as much as we could. And then I raised about speeding through the village, because we do have quite a lot of functions at Preston Mill, and late at night taxi drivers take a shortcut through the village at speed, and it's noisy and pretty dangerous, and other people going home late after the functions that go on at the mill. So that's been a bit of an issue. And the littering in the lanes, there is obviously at least one person who regularly drinks while they're going along in their car and drops the cans, etc., on their way through. And I'm sure other people have got similar problems, but so a bit more of a campaign against litter would be great. That was it, really.
Yeah, I have to say, we have the same problem right round here with litter from cars, but anyway.
Could I just say something else on the planning issue?
Please do.
I agree that at the moment, if the parish council disagrees strongly with the planning officer, it has to go to the chairman of the committee. But this is a decision made by Bays. This is not. This doesn't come down from above. And there are a number of authorities very close to us, Gloucestershire in particular, and South Somerset, where the requirement is quite different. And there, if there is a serious disagreement between the parish council and the planning officer, then it has to go to committee, not to the chairman. And I believe that would be a better idea for us small parishes.
Personally, I can't disagree with that, but thank you for raising the point. And we'll look to take that forwards. It certainly does seem to be an issue, that decision process.
But one of the problems about the democratic system is tiny parishes have no force, particularly when there's a large lump of Bath or Bristol close by. And the democratic process doesn't work well. So we have no votes, basically. But we should have, that localism should give us a bit more of a say. I'm not saying that the decision was wrong or it would have been different if it had gone to committee, but at least we would have understood the arguments.
that's fine. Thank you. That's down there. We've gone through Wellow. In the chat, I've got Kelston. We've gone through Kelston. Fiona, you submitted your have I covered you, Fiona? Yes, I have, sorry. In addition, differences between the rural villages, Midford and Southstoke, and the new urban development in Suddisdown, the problem of infilling, which threatened to create a precedence. So we've basically got problems with infill again. That's the third time I've heard the word infill used. Are we saying that we've actually got an issue here on an understanding, a common understanding of infill across Baines? Is this something that we should ask planning to come and talk to us on?
We've also had that issue in Dunkerton and Tunley, John. So a further explanation in and around that word would be helpful. We had to sort of invent a definition and run with it to get something done. So to pin it down in the medium term would be very helpful.
Right, so if we're saying better understanding of planning rules, e.g., planning rules is the wrong word, but e.g., definition of infill.
My understanding, for what it's worth, John, is that infill is a replacement for the housing development boundary issue and the requirement for additional housing within Baines. My understanding is that within Baines they're ahead of target at the moment and likely to exceed target in terms of new houses being developed. So I think it's something that from a parish perspective, we need to be very careful about being steamrolled into having whatever development Baines thinks is applicable for each parish. Doesn't actually apply to Kelston because we have a conservation area overlaying the housing development boundary within the village, but it will apply to other villages within certainly Bathavon North, who will have a certain number of houses being imposed on them.
I fully understand that. I'm being very careful not to put my views forwards. Infill is a definition that I'm all too used to, and how it can get, the definition can be bent by a developer.
As I recall our case, John, just for the note, there was another term associated with it called backland.
Backfill.
No, I think it's backland, not backfill. So these terms were related, and it's that
yes, they are.
It's that we had a problem with. So it would be helpful to clarify this.
Yeah, I won't go into my issue, but yes, I understand exactly where you're coming from, Dave. I think I've caught everyone who's responded here. Have I missed anybody's responses out?
You missed mine about public transport along the B3115, John.
I apologise, Dave.
Don't worry. There are three reasons that I flagged this up. Two of them relate to the points that were raised by Wellow. So I'll echo those points as I just speak around it. The three reasons I raised this, I mentioned earlier the WECA studies that are going on at the moment about the north-south arterial routes, the A37 and the A367. The B3115 goes between the two. It's one of the ladder rungs that we hope to see created. And I know that some local campaigners have actually been in touch with WECA to understand how we are going to find out about those ladder rungs. The best advice they got was that, yes, they'll look at those, but not until 2025. By then, Baines is halfway through its journey to net zero. So this is all asynchronous. Point one, the timing's going out. So that's an issue. It's timing. of these planning issues. The second issue is, right, while we're waiting and in the longer term, if we don't get buses, what are the alternatives? And in the Shoscombe area, there's a scheme called Fair Car, which surprisingly was instigated by Baines in 2005. And it's like a dial-a-ride type thing. It's an on-demand car service to make up for the fact there are no buses in that particular area. I think South Stoke is in the catchment area as well. Over the last few months, I've been in touch with the scheme administrator and Andy Strong, who's now at WECA, saying, what is the prospect for widening the Fair Car area and indeed creating new Fair Car schemes to enable rural connectivity if there are going to be no buses? So Andy has said, yes, WECA might think about that, and we might all benefit from it if we can get an answer and understanding from Baines and WECA as to the likelihood of that sort of thing happening, and to go back to the timing, when it might happen, if it could happen, to service places like Dunkerton and Wellow and Shoscombe and the sticks. Let's use that phrase. And the third and final reason, if we just allow me to, and I'm going to admit I'm being a bit scurrilous here, but I've got a good reason for it. Way back in 2017, Baines wrote a transport strategy, which is on the website today, saying we are going to look at ways to improve east-west public transport connectivity. I've told Baines those 2017 strategies, they're old, dated, they're worth nothing to nobody, get rid of them. But I've been repeatedly told, no, Dave, they're live and they're valid. Well, okay then, let's see what you're going to do about the B3115, bearing in mind WECA is already looking at the uprights on the ladder. Who's going to do anything about the east and west things then? So for three reasons, I've sort of captured that issue, some of which resonate with what Wello has said and what others are interested in. I rest my case, my lord.
Right. So what I'm hearing is we need solutions to the 2017 strategy covering east-west.
It's that 27. I'm now holding a mirror up to Baines saying, you said this. So you told me it's live. I don't believe you, but you tell me it's live. Okay, what are you going to do about the B3115 then? That's the first one. That's my scurrilous intent. But the two more genuine and honest, timing with WECA, this 2025 thing, and the Fair Car scheme. What's the option to expand the Fair Car scheme to help the rural areas across Baines?
Right. Options to extend Fair Car scheme.
Yeah.
Got that. Thank you. Robert, did you have your hand up as well that I missed you? Sorry, you're on mute.
Yeah, okay. Just very briefly, that what has been said about litter in Preston, we have fly tipping, and I imagine they do too, and traffic, speeding traffic. Those are things which are common to us. We're obviously adjacent parishes. The main thing which I come across is we don't have many planning problems as such at the moment, except what we kind of hear about, and that is that there doesn't seem to be, from the Baines Planning Department, really consistency about decision making, which again has come up with Wello. All I've done with if you compare repetition, things a year, is that the communication between parish councils and the Baines planning officers is lamentable. It's not that they can't send an email and say what their decision is, that's not really it, but it is divulging what their thinking is. Because I mean I had yesterday, and I won't say what it is or which parish for that matter. In fact, it was in my parish, in my little Englishcombe, but a scheme was turned down because the proposed development, which is very, very minor, was more than a 10-minute walk from the nearest bus route. Well, I think you try and get your mind around that and what we've been saying about net zero. Yes, it would be more for me, who's lame and winking. It would be probably more than 10 minutes. But for any able person, I couldn't see that from where the houses are, there would be more. People are getting, with that kind of thing, that kind of excuse what it is, what I'm turning them down, is getting people angry. Because then they see inconsistencies in other places where planning is allowed. And this really, rather than kind of trying to solve all these things, a lot of it is, or can be resolved through really good communication, that when something comes up at a parish council meeting, you know, on occasions, somebody from the planning department comes along. Because I agree with Olga, you know, it's either, well, they said their bit, you know, and it's too bad, we're just doing and make a decision. You know, and they're not even bothered to tell the parish council unless they look up and say it's been refused or allowed, or the reasons. I mean, it is really paramount in the system. You know, that this happens. I can't see it needs to take up much time. You know, but it would help. I mean, I have no idea how many people, you know, officers on planning that Baines employs. I have no idea. I mean, we know now that there are 4 enforcement officers, but what are there, 2 of them doing the whole area, or 20? No idea. You know, I suspect it's nearer 2 than 20. You know, but because I mean, you know, when they do come round, they say, "Oh, well, look at their watch, got to get away, got another job." You know, and I know this is not blaming Baines, because we all know, all of us, that this is a central government deficiency going back many years of finance. But it just is something that needs stressing. And it's a very easy thing for people to learn about the, you know, what is acceptable, what isn't, but also to communicate with each other so that people, even if they disagree with their decision, feel they've had a fair crack of the whip.
I think that's a really key point, the communications. Thank you.
Yep.
Brian, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm now. Okay, can you hear me? Can I support what Robert said? You've got 2 English coon people here. I'm very sorry about that. But one of the things that has come up is this question of the parish charter. When the parish charter was first introduced, Peter Dupper-Miller and a number of us worked very, very hard indeed to make sure that it was going to be effective. It seems to me that, in fact, it is no longer effective. It seems to me that Baines really don't take too much notice of what the parish charter tried to achieve. And I do feel that we should, as a group, get together with Baines and say, look, this is important. There's a lot of work that can be done by the parish councils, which would assist Baines and would give a far smoother process in running the parishes. So that's one point. And the other point was, there is an anomaly which has concerned me for some while, and that is the area of outstanding natural beauty, where only about, it's 3/4 of Bath, or the environs of Bath, are included in the area of outstanding natural beauty. And we have Coombe Hay, part of Coombe Hay, Newton St Low, and English Coombe omitted from the ANOB. I've tried talking to the people to see whether in fact we can get anything done. But what I'm sort of getting is a blank at the present moment, you know, we're not considering doing this, we're not considering looking at it. But I do think from a point of view, so far as Bath is concerned, that it would be a major benefit and make things much easier if we were all within the area of outstanding natural beauty.
John, you're muted.
Agreed.
Really not doing this well. I'd say sack the chairman. You're saying we need to consider how to protect the rural environment outside of the AONB, because AONBs are actually going. Don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know. What is, I'm not sure it's appropriate for this meeting, but what actually is happening with AONBs?
They're doing a wind scale solar field job in renaming them, restructuring them so they can actually undertake more appropriate development. Make of that as you will.
I don't like the sound of that at all. Well, maybe it's an opportunity, in fact, that we could, in fact, then encompass part of Coombe Hay, Newton Savile and English Coombe into that. It certainly would make a lot of sense to do so.
Right, it seems to me that that's a key thing to bring through into planning. Need to consider how to protect the rural environment that is outside of the AONB.
Yeah,
it's to be known as national land. Well, it is now already I've discovered as national landscapes. I learned at Wellow last night.
Yeah.
So we now have Cotswold National Landscape instead of Cotswold AONB.
Oh.
Sorry to be the bringer, harbinger of bad news, Brian.
Yeah, don't like the sound of that at all.
No.
Okay. Thin end of the wedge to me. And I think that gets back to what I was saying about the parish charter and an improvement in the communication between Baines and the parishes.
Right, what I've marked down on the parish charter is under process, review the parish charter to meet current needs.
Absolutely.
Fine. I know that's twisting your words a bit, but
no, it's exactly what I was trying to get at, that we really need to look at, to readdress the parish charter and to make sure that Baines are on board. We
okay.
have a big problem where they were totally ignoring it when it first came in. And the chief executive at the time said, well, no, this has got to be something which is taken seriously and you've got to work together. And for a short time, it did work. But it seems to me this drifted.
That may come, let's move forwards and take a look at it and make things work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience I've missed out?
Sarah's got a hand up, John.
Sarah, sorry.
I'll mute myself. Hi. Yeah, sorry.
It's contagious.
I think Anna did it for me before she had to move to her next meeting. But yeah, I mean, a lot of this is replicated in what other people are experiencing. But for us in Claverton, I think number one would be open water swimming and Whalley Weir and the issues that come with that in terms of parking, antisocial behaviour, general safety issues. It's a big one for us. And with the growth in outdoor swimming, it's now all year round. Also another one, which is, I would say, shared amongst all our parishes probably, is the protection of ancient woodland. The majority of it is within Avon and the Lipley Stoke Valley. And I think it's a common interest for us to make sure it's protected. We had the Hengrove Woods in Claverton and next to Barthampton Woods, and there's some significant work going on there at the moment, which is causing us concern. And then we, again, planning comes up. We have quite a few listed buildings within our community, and with addressing climate change, I think, you know, people need to know how we could perhaps, is there a way of relaxing the rules so that listed buildings can retrofit stuff that which will help save energy. I think we could do with some help with that, but also doing it in a way that it's not a permitted development, so we don't get so we protect the beauty of the village. And then we also had light pollution. We're trying to protect our dark skies. We in Claverton, we're very close to the university, which has significant floodlighting, and now the American Museum also have their 6-week light festival at Christmas. So yes, we have light pollution. That's something that's important to us. And lastly, transport, which everyone else has covered. I think we have 1 an hour. So yes, if we're trying to reduce using the car, how can we make that work? That's it.
Thank you, Sarah. Robert, you just put your hand up.
Yeah, I hope I can help Sarah here. At our last meeting at the Bath Preservation Society parish meeting, which is held every 2 months, this very subject came up because we have a query in our village about this, not with a listed building, I might hasten to add, and there are measures which obviously that are being invented. Means being invented to say for solar energy gain, photoelectric cells in roofs which you can't see. I mean, I won't go beyond that, but we have discussed it, and I wonder if Sarah might. I mean, I don't know if anyone from Claverton joins our meeting, which is once every 2 months or so, but she might like to, because things like that come up. It is a very good meeting for discussing planning issues with historic buildings and general area.
Thank you for mentioning that, Robert. John, if I might just chip in, I actually chair that meeting, and yeah. Preservation Trust is producing a paper with Baines for retrofitting particularly very old properties. Now, whether that document is completed yet or not, but I know it should be coming out very soon. And if there's anything we can do to help, and forgive me without giving anyone any additional meetings to go to, but we do have a number of parishes in the environs of the World Heritage City which meet every other month, and we'd be delighted to see anyone from a parish who is not currently with us. We're currently working by Zoom for about an hour, as once every 2 months, to discuss some of the issues which are similar to this particular meeting, but you'd all be very welcome.
Thank you very much. I've just been checking the emails. There's one we've got through, I'm not sure which PC, Douglas. Oh, that's you, isn't it? I'm sorry, you're here. I do apologise. The issues at Freshford are raising is street lighting. For some reason, we own our own street lights. We need Bain support for moving to LED and how to undertake maintenance. The reason we need support on moving to LED is we need to address the climate emergency through, that's one aspect of addressing the climate emergency. And the costs are going to go through the roof in a year's time when our contract's up. And I'm sure we're not alone in this. And we need support from Baines on taking that forwards. So we may be able to create a project that's cost effective through numbers. Communications, our clerk has asked me to raise, we need focused and coordinated communications from Baines. And subject areas for consideration, community health, the climate emergency element is reduction in travel, but we need health facilities in the community, which is why the village agents are a good start, but there's much more. If we could have health facilities in the community, that reduces travel to city centres. Talking secondary healthcare there. Transport, the strategies from our perspective don't appear to address our rural community. As Dave said, we don't have an east-west. There's no way of reaching Wellow, which is just the next village across, effectively, other than by car. No other way. And again, on transport, we're a village with lanes that were built for horses. We have significant issues in relation to parking, the amount of traffic, because we are seeing rising traffic. We're seeing where even 15 years ago, families had smaller cars and now Chelsea wagons, as we're calling them, creating huge damage. And the delivery vans, the amount of delivery vans have increased significantly during lockdown. Our lanes can't take it, period. It's a big problem. Those are the issues that I've been asked to raise, just so you're aware. Okay. Does anyone have any comments to make?
I'd just say, John, that given where we are where we are. Absolutely understand the points you've raised about the transport issues in Freshford, and I think it's an opportunity to say, if we are going to take any of these issues forward for future consideration and remedial action, it's important from here on in we say we need action on X, Y, and Z, parking in Freshford, because it contravenes the expectations or objectives of the journey to net zero. I think it's going to be important that we put everything in the context of that all-encompassing statement. If any of us, either in this meeting or any other meeting, turn up and say, do you know, we don't like parking in our village because we don't like it in our village. If we bring it in as a very insular, blinkered, personal statement of something we don't like, I don't think we're going to get very far.
No, we're not.
If we explain and point out to the councillors and officers that this is an issue because it threatens achievement of the journey to net zero, because X, Y, and Z. So I think it's absolutely right to raise these issues, but in the context of the journey to net zero, not because we just don't like them. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do, totally. You got absolutely no argument from me, Dave. I'd actually take it a stage further. I mean, there's a lot of discussion in our community. We are one of the few areas that actually has the Bath asparagus plant. And it grows on the roadside in the main. They're getting destroyed. I'm sorry, but it's being pushed into, certainly in our area, near extinction. And that is fundamental. So anyway, next steps, we need to draw this up and we need to agree how we're going to take this forward. So what I propose to do is I'll draw up the issues log. I made a note as best I can. I tidied it up with Mark over the coming days. Well, we've got the climate forum on Thursday, so it won't be this week. And then circulate it round, and then we need to get straight how we're going to raise these issues, as you rightly say, Dave, and how we're going to take them forwards. Because some are for Baines to take action, report back on us. Some we need to take through to the parish liaison route, such as the Parish Charter. But you've given me a really good thought there, Dave, that we need to put the context rather than just have this as our issue. So we need some narrative around that. You're quite right, for it to have an impact.
You know, the question is, why should Baines care? We think this is an issue. Well, why should they care? And that's what we need to feed back to them.
We do. And it's also come out that there's certainly one subject that we need to take forwards on the Bath Haven Forum, and that's have Bath planning involved here and have that interaction. So the point I'm making is that there are different activities we need to make happen to address these issues. Okay. Marshall, you've raised your hand. Have I missed you? Sorry.
No, my Wi-Fi cut out just but Olga very kindly raised all the Wallow issues. But I just wanted to say that actually a large crux of our issues with planning is that the objections and comments that were made by the Parish Council were in response to climate change concerns and biodiversity concerns. And so we were particularly concerned that planning then let things go through when we objected on the basis of the impact on biodiversity. So, you know, it just really particularly felt as though this was really not in keeping with Baines and their journey to net zero statement. So I would basically just wanted to add to what Dave just said.
Sorry, I've got a wry smile because it sounds familiar. So what we're saying is really on climate change, we need planning decisions to support net zero 2030, to be blunt. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yes.
Fine, thank you. Okay. The time is 8 o'clock dead. If anyone has got anything fundamental to raise, please raise your hand now. Otherwise, I say thank you very much.